Did you know that some innocent-looking plants in your garden could actually be breaking the law? While we plant our tomatoes and zucchini, there's a world of forbidden vegetation that could land you in hot water. These aren't just exotic plants. Many were once common in American gardens before regulations changed. Today, we're exploring 25 vegetables that are illegal or heavily restricted across the United States. Water spinach. Water spinach might look like an ordinary leafy green, perfect for stir-fries with its tender stems and arrow-shaped leaves. In Southeast Asia, it's a staple vegetable known for its mild flavor and impressive nutrition. The entire plant is edible. The tender stems and leaves can be quickly stir-fried, added to soups, or even eaten raw in salads. It's particularly valued for its crisp texture and ability to absorb flavors. But this innocent-looking vegetable is one of the most invasive aquatic plants ever introduced to American ecosystems. Once established, it forms dense mats that choke out native vegetation, disrupt water flow, and destroy wildlife habitats. The federal government has classified water spinach as a noxious weed, making it illegal to grow in most states without special permits. Only Texas allows limited cultivation under strict regulation, requiring growers to obtain permits and follow rigorous containment protocols. Kudzu. Kudzu might not seem like a vegetable, but in its native Asia, nearly every part is edible. The young shoots can be prepared like asparagus, the large leaves used to wrap foods or make tea, and the flowers brewed into jelly or syrup. Even the starchy roots can be ground into flour for cooking. The plant is also used medicinally in traditional Asian medicine. In America, kudzu tells a different story, one of ecological disaster. Introduced in the 1930s to combat soil erosion, this aggressive vine earned the nickname, the vine that ate the South. Kudzu can grow up to a foot per day, smothering trees, buildings, and anything else in its path. Today, kudzu is federally banned and classified as a noxious weed in many states, particularly throughout the Southeast, where it has caused billions in damage to forests and agriculture. States like Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi have spent decades battling this green invader. Hydrilla. Hydrilla might look like an attractive aquatic plant with its whorls of small, pointed leaves arranged around slender stems. In parts of Asia, the young shoots and leaves are occasionally harvested and used in salads or as a cooked green vegetable. It contains various nutrients and has been used in some traditional medicine systems. But this seemingly innocent water plant has become one of America's most destructive aquatic invaders. Once introduced to natural waterways, hydrilla forms dense mats that can grow an inch per day, reaching lengths of up to 25 feet. These impenetrable thickets block sunlight, deplete oxygen, and choke out native vegetation. The federal government has banned hydrilla's importation and interstate transport, while states like Florida, California, and Texas have spent hundreds of millions fighting infestations. What makes hydrilla particularly troublesome is its resilience. It can reproduce from tiny fragments, and its tubers can remain viable in sediment for years. Water hyacinth. Water hyacinth captivates with its lavender blue flowers and glossy green leaves that float atop rosettes on the water's surface. In some cultures, the petiole's leaf stalks can be eaten after cooking to remove the high oxalic acid content. The flowers are sometimes used as garnishes, and young leaves can be cooked as greens. But this beauty is deceptive. Water hyacinth is one of the fastest-growing plants on Earth, capable of doubling its population in just 2 weeks. A single plant can multiply into 65,000 plants in a single growing season, forming floating mats so dense they can support a person's weight. Federally banned and restricted in most states, water hyacinth has caused ecological and economic havoc across the southern United States, particularly in Florida, Louisiana, and Texas. These floating mats block waterways, impede boat traffic, reduce oxygen levels, and crowd out native species. Salvinia. Salvinia, also known as water fern, appears harmless with its small, oval-shaped leaves covered in tiny water-repellent hairs that create a distinctive velvety texture. In some traditional practices, it has been used medicinally. But this innocent-looking aquatic fern becomes a monster when released into natural waterways. Giant Salvinia can double its biomass in just 36 hours under ideal conditions, quickly covering water surfaces with mats up to 3 feet thick. These dense carpets block sunlight, deplete oxygen, and transform thriving aquatic ecosystems into dead zones. The federal government has designated Salvinia as a noxious weed, making it illegal to import, sell, or transport across state lines. States like Texas, Louisiana, and Florida have implemented strict regulations and aggressive control programs to combat existing infestations. Giant Hogweed. Giant hogweed stands as a towering presence, reaching heights of 15 feet with umbrella-shaped white flower clusters spanning 2 feet across. Despite its dangers, the plant has edible uses when handled with extreme caution. In Russia and parts of Eastern Europe, the young stems are sometimes peeled, soaked, and prepared like rhubarb or asparagus. The seeds have been used as a spice similar to cardamom. But this impressive plant harbors a dangerous secret. Its sap contains chemicals that cause severe photodermatitis. Contact with the sap, followed by exposure to sunlight, can cause painful blisters, permanent scarring, and even blindness if it gets into the eyes. Giant hogweed is federally banned and listed as a noxious weed in many states, particularly in the Northeast and Pacific Northwest. What makes it particularly concerning is its resemblance to native plants like cow parsnip, leading to accidental exposures. Japanese knotweed. Japanese knotweed presents a deceptive face. Its hollow bamboo-like stems and heart-shaped leaves create an attractive, fast-growing privacy screen. The young spring shoots are actually quite delicious, with a flavor similar to rhubarb but less tart. They can be used in pies, jams, soups, or simply sautéed as a side dish. In Japan, they're considered a spring delicacy, known as itadori. But this seemingly useful plant has earned its reputation as vegetable kudzu for good reason. Its aggressive growth habit allows it to form dense thickets up to 10 feet tall, while its root system can extend 20 feet deep and 65 feet horizontally. These powerful rhizomes can penetrate concrete, damage foundations, and break through asphalt. Japanese knotweed is restricted or banned in many states, particularly in the Northeast and Pacific Northwest. In places like New York, Massachusetts, and Oregon, property owners are legally required to control infestations. Alligator weed. Alligator weed might not look threatening with its hollow stems, opposite leaves, and small white flowers that resemble clover blooms. In parts of Asia, particularly China, the young stems and leaves are harvested as a nutritious vegetable. It's rich in vitamins and minerals with a mild flavor similar to spinach and is commonly used in stir-fries and soups. But in American waterways, alligator weed transforms into an aggressive invader that forms dense floating mats, choking out native vegetation and disrupting aquatic ecosystems. These mats can be so thick they impede water flow, increase flooding risk, and create ideal mosquito breeding grounds. Federally banned as a noxious weed, alligator weed is particularly problematic in southern states like Florida, Georgia, and Louisiana. What makes it especially challenging is its amphibious nature. Unlike many aquatic invaders, it can thrive both in water and on land. Carolina horsenettle. Carolina horsenettle presents a contradictory face in the garden. With its star-shaped purple flowers and bright yellow stamens, it resembles an ornamental relative of the tomato or eggplant. While extremely toxic when unripe, the mature yellow berries have occasionally been used in traditional folk recipes for preserves after careful preparation to reduce toxicity. However, consumption is strongly discouraged due to the significant health risks. But this native nightshade harbors dangerous secrets. Every part of the plant contains solanine and other toxic alkaloids, with the unripe berries being particularly dangerous. Though some traditional herbalists have used small amounts medicinally, consumption can cause severe gastrointestinal distress, respiratory complications, and even death. Carolina horsenettle is restricted or prohibited in several states, particularly in the Midwest and Northeast, where it's classified as a noxious weed. States like Iowa, Michigan, and Pennsylvania have implemented control requirements for landowners. Garlic mustard. Garlic mustard begins innocently enough, with kidney-shaped leaves forming a basal rosette in its first year. The entire plant is edible and quite nutritious. The leaves have a distinct garlic mustard flavor that works well in salads, pesto, and sautés. The roots taste similar to horseradish when grated, and the seeds can be used as a peppery mustard substitute. Early European settlers brought it to America specifically for food and medicine. But this seemingly useful plant has become one of the most aggressive woodland invaders in America. Garlic mustard releases chemicals into the soil that inhibit the growth of other plants and disrupt the mycorrhizal fungi that native trees depend on. A single plant can produce thousands of seeds that remain viable in the soil for up to 5 years. Garlic mustard is prohibited or restricted in many Midwestern and Northeastern states, including Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Vermont, where it has devastated forest understories. Some states require landowners to control infestations, particularly in natural areas. Cogongrass. Cogongrass might initially appeal to gardeners with its graceful, feathery seed heads that catch the light and sway in the breeze. In some Southeast Asian cultures, the young shoots are occasionally harvested as a vegetable, though they're notably fibrous and require careful preparation. The rhizomes have also been used in traditional medicine to treat fevers and as a diuretic. But this seemingly ornamental grass hides a sinister nature. Cogongrass forms dense monocultures that crowd out native vegetation and alter fire regimes. Its leaves contain silica crystals that make it unpalatable to most grazing animals, giving it a competitive advantage. Federally banned and listed as a noxious weed in many southern states, Cogongrass has been called the perfect weed for its remarkable adaptability. States like Florida, Alabama, and Mississippi spend millions annually on eradication efforts. It burns hotter and faster than native grasses, creating intense fires that damage native plants while stimulating its own growth. Dodder. Dodder presents one of the strangest sights in the plant world, thread-like yellow or orange stems that twine around host plants like living spaghetti. Despite its parasitic nature, dodder has been used in traditional Chinese medicine for centuries. The dried stems are brewed into teas or soups believed to benefit kidney and liver function. In some cultures, it's also added to soups as a thickening agent. But this peculiar plant is actually a parasitic nightmare. After germinating, dodder seedlings have just days to find a suitable host. Once contact is made, they wrap around the host plant and insert specialized structures called haustoria that tap directly into the host's vascular system, stealing water, nutrients, and even genetic material. Dodder is federally banned as a noxious weed with particularly strict regulations in agricultural states like California, Arizona, and Idaho, where it can devastate crops like alfalfa, potatoes, and tomatoes. Parthenium. Parthenium appears unassuming with its small white flowers and deeply lobed leaves resembling those of chrysanthemums. In some regions, young leaves are occasionally used as a leafy vegetable or added to salads, though this practice is increasingly discouraged due to health concerns. The seeds contain a high protein content and have been ground into flour during food shortages in some parts of the world. But this innocent-looking plant harbors multiple threats. Contact with Parthenium can cause severe allergic reactions, including dermatitis, hay fever, and asthma in sensitive individuals. These reactions can develop after repeated exposure, affecting people who initially showed no symptoms. Federally banned and listed as a noxious weed, Parthenium is particularly problematic in southern states with warmer climates. Its presence in agricultural areas can taint milk and meat when consumed by livestock, while chemicals released from its roots inhibit the growth of nearby crops. Mile-a-minute weed. Mile-a-minute weed earns its name honestly. This annual vine can grow up to 6 inches per day, quickly scrambling over other vegetation. In its native range in East Asia, the young shoots and leaves are harvested as vegetables. They have a tangy, slightly sour flavor similar to sorrel and can be added to soups, stir-fries, or eaten as a cooked green. The small blue fruits are also edible, though rarely consumed due to their small size. But this rapid growth becomes a serious problem when the plant escapes cultivation. Mile a minute forms dense mats that smother native vegetation, climbing over shrubs and trees and blocking essential sunlight. The barbed stems and petioles allow it to cling tenaciously to supporting plants. Mile a minute is banned or restricted in many northeastern and mid-Atlantic states, including Pennsylvania, New York, and Maryland, where it has invaded natural areas and agricultural lands. Purple Loosestrife. Purple Loosestrife creates a stunning display with its tall spikes of magenta flowers that bloom throughout summer. Historically, the young shoots and leaves were occasionally used as potherbs in traditional European cooking. The leaves have a slightly bitter taste and were sometimes added to soups or stews. The flowers have been used to make teas and syrups in folk medicine. But this beautiful plant becomes a monster in wetland ecosystems. A single plant can produce up to 2.7 million seeds annually, quickly transforming diverse wetlands into monocultures. As native plants disappear, so do the wildlife species that depend on them for food and habitat. Purple Loosestrife is banned in 29 states, particularly across the northern United States, where it has devastated wetland ecosystems. States like Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois have implemented aggressive control programs combining mechanical removal, herbicides, and biological controls like specialized beetles that feed exclusively on loosestrife. Scotch Thistle. Scotch Thistle stands out with its impressive size, growing up to 12 feet tall, and distinctive silvery blue foliage covered in sharp spines. Despite its intimidating appearance, it has several edible parts. The young leaves, with spines carefully removed, can be cooked as greens. The peeled stalks taste similar to celery when cooked, and the roots of first-year plants can be peeled and prepared, like parsnips. Even the flower receptacles can be eaten like artichoke hearts. But this imposing plant quickly becomes a problem when it escapes cultivation. Scotch thistle forms dense, impenetrable stands that exclude native vegetation and reduce forage value for livestock. The sharp spines can injure animals and make recreational areas unusable. Scotch thistle is restricted or prohibited in many western states, including Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah, where it has invaded rangelands and natural areas. Its control is mandated by law in many counties, requiring landowners to implement management strategies to prevent its spread. Canada Thistle. Canada Thistle might seem like just another spiny weed, but it has surprising edible uses. The young shoots and leaves, when carefully despined, can be cooked as nutritious greens with a flavor similar to spinach. The roots are also edible when peeled, chopped, and roasted. In some traditional cultures, the stems were peeled and eaten raw or cooked, providing a good source of nutrients during lean times. But this hardy perennial has become one of North America's most problematic agricultural weeds. Unlike many thistles, it spreads aggressively through horizontal roots that can extend 15 feet in a single season. Cutting or mowing often stimulates more growth, making control particularly challenging. Canada thistle is restricted or prohibited in numerous states across the northern United States, including Idaho, Washington, and Michigan. Many states classify it as a noxious weed, requiring landowners to implement control measures. Its ability to reduce crop yields by up to 100% in heavily infested fields makes it a serious economic threat. Wild parsnip. Wild parsnip might seem like a beneficial plant. After all, it's closely related to the cultivated parsnips we grow for food. The long taproot is indeed edible and nutritious, having sustained people through harsh winters for centuries. When properly identified and harvested in the first year before flowering, the roots can be cooked like domestic parsnips, with a sweet, earthy flavor that intensifies after frost. But this common roadside plant harbors a dangerous secret. Its sap contains chemicals called furanocoumarins that cause phytophotodermatitis, a condition where skin exposed to the sap becomes extremely sensitive to sunlight. The resulting burns, blisters, and discoloration can last for months and leave permanent scarring. Wild parsnip is restricted in several states, particularly in the Northeast and Midwest, including Vermont, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. Many counties require control measures, especially along public rights-of-way, where unsuspecting hikers or maintenance workers might come into contact with it. Spotted knapweed. Spotted knapweed presents an attractive appearance with its thistle-like purple flowers and finely divided leaves. In some traditional European cuisines, the young leaves were occasionally harvested as bitter greens for salads or cooking. The roots have also been used medicinally, and the flowers sometimes made into teas or used as garnishes. But this seemingly innocent plant is actually a master of chemical warfare. Knapweed releases compounds into the soil that inhibit the growth of neighboring plants, creating barren areas where little else can grow. A single plant can produce up to 140,000 seeds that remain viable in the soil for years. Spotted knapweed is restricted or prohibited in many western and midwestern states, including Montana, Colorado, and Michigan, where it has invaded millions of acres of rangeland and natural areas. Its spread reduces forage for livestock and wildlife while increasing soil erosion on disturbed sites. Russian knapweed. Russian knapweed might look like an ordinary wildflower with its thistle-like purple blooms and gray-green foliage. In some traditional cuisines, particularly in its native range, the young shoots have been harvested as bitter greens for salads or cooking. The roots have also been used in folk medicine, though consumption is generally discouraged due to the plant's toxicity to livestock. But this unassuming plant is one of the most difficult invasive species to control once established. Russian knapweed produces powerful allelopathic chemicals that inhibit the growth of neighboring plants, creating dead zones where nothing else will grow. Its extensive root system can penetrate soil to depths of 20 feet, making mechanical removal nearly impossible. Russian knapweed is banned in many western states, including Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana, where it has invaded rangeland, pastures, and cropland. The plant is particularly problematic because it's toxic to horses, causing irreversible neurological damage known as chewing disease when consumed in sufficient quantities. Johnsongrass. Johnsongrass appears as a tall, robust grass with wide leaves and an attractive, open seed head. It has several edible uses. The young shoots can be harvested and prepared like asparagus, while the seeds can be ground into flour for bread or porridge. In some cultures, the sweet sap from the stems has been extracted for syrup, similar to sorghum molasses. But this seemingly beneficial grass quickly becomes a farmer's nightmare. Johnsongrass spreads aggressively through both seeds and rhizomes, invading cropland and reducing yields of corn, soybeans, and cotton. Under stress conditions, it can produce toxic levels of hydrogen cyanide, posing a serious threat to grazing livestock. Johnsongrass is restricted in many agricultural states, including Arkansas, California, and Arizona. Its control is mandated by law in many counties, requiring landowners to implement management strategies to prevent its spread. The economic impact of Johnsongrass infestations in U.S. agriculture is estimated at hundreds of millions of dollars annually. Witchweed. Witchweed might look harmless with its slender stems and small, bright red flowers. Unlike most plants on this list, witchweed has very limited edible applications. In some traditional African cultures, certain striga species have been used medicinally in small amounts, but the plant is generally not consumed as food due to its parasitic nature and potential toxicity. Once attached, witchweed steals water, nutrients, and carbohydrates from its host, causing stunted growth, wilting, and yield reductions of up to 100% in heavily infested fields. A single witchweed plant can produce up to 500,000 microscopic seeds that remain viable in soil for decades. Federally banned as a parasitic plant, witchweed is subject to a strict quarantine and eradication program, particularly in the Carolinas, where it was first discovered in the United States in the 1950s. The USDA considers it one of the most potentially damaging agricultural pests ever introduced to North America. Oriental Mustard. Oriental mustard appears as an upright plant with bright yellow flowers and deeply lobed leaves. It's highly valued as an edible plant across many cultures. The leaves are harvested as the familiar mustard greens found in markets, offering a peppery flavor that mellows with cooking. The seeds are ground to make the popular condiment mustard, while the young flowering stems can be prepared like broccoli rabe. But this culinary plant becomes problematic when it escapes cultivation. Oriental mustard can quickly colonize disturbed areas, outcompeting native vegetation and reducing biodiversity. Its seeds contain compounds that can suppress the growth of neighboring plants, giving it a competitive advantage. Oriental mustard is restricted in certain habitats and regions, particularly in parts of the West and Midwest where it has shown invasive tendencies. While not as aggressively regulated as some other plants on this list, its cultivation is discouraged in areas where it has demonstrated the ability to escape into natural ecosystems. Tropical soda apple. Tropical soda apple might catch your eye with its distinctive marble-sized fruits that start green with white mottling before ripening to yellow. When ripe, the fruits are edible and often consumed by wildlife, but for humans, their bitter taste and the plant's thorny nature isn't quite as appealing. In some traditional medicine systems, parts of the plant have been used for various remedies, though this practice is uncommon in the United States. But this nightshade relative quickly becomes a thorny nightmare when introduced to pastures and natural areas. The entire plant is covered in sharp, curved spines that can puncture tires, injure livestock, and make infested areas impassable. Cattle avoid grazing near it, but spread the seeds through manure after consuming the fruits. Tropical soda apple is restricted or prohibited in many southern states, including Florida, Georgia, and Alabama, where it has invaded millions of acres of pasture land. The USDA has implemented an aggressive eradication program requiring landowners to control infestations to prevent further spread of this costly invasive species. Water lettuce. Water lettuce creates a striking appearance in water gardens with its rosettes of pale green, velvety leaves that resemble floating heads of lettuce. In parts of Asia and Africa, the leaves are occasionally cooked and eaten after thorough preparation to remove irritating compounds. The plant has also been used in traditional medicine and as animal fodder in some regions. But this decorative aquatic plant becomes a serious problem when it escapes into natural waterways. Water lettuce forms dense floating mats that block sunlight, deplete oxygen, and impede water flow. These mats can completely cover the surface of ponds, lakes, and slow-moving streams, devastating aquatic ecosystems. Water lettuce is federally banned and restricted in many states, particularly in the South and parts of the West where it can survive year-round. States like Florida, Texas, and California have implemented aggressive control programs to manage existing infestations and prevent further spread of this destructive aquatic invader. Which of these banned vegetables surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this information valuable, please like and subscribe for more gardening insights.